think it creates like what I'm seeing everywhere at the moment is that there's a loneliness epidemic where everyone's chasing this version of themselves they want to become, and therefore have to shed the skin almost of the previous version of themselves. But there's that, what you're saying, unnatural feeling to doing that.
Yeah, because of what's familiar.
Is that is that normal? Is that a necessary phase that you have to go through? Do you have to go through a lonely chapter? A
So
phase where you're not in the rooms with the people you want to be in,
So
but you
what happens? Yeah, that usually does happen. And what happens is when you grow, you don't relate to the connections that you grew up with. Then you're in this middle phase where you haven't formed any new connections, and that's the loneliness. Because if we look at what loneliness is as a feeling, it's a feeling of it's a lack of connection. And that's why people, when they're lonely, they resort to empty things like pleasure, sex, smoking, alcohol, because they're trying to seek that. They're trying to fill that void, but the void is lack of connection. So what they need to do is they need to, as they grow, how can you create new connections that align with who you're becoming? And that way you won't be lonely. So loneliness is literally just lack of connection, and also is a lack of connection with yourself. And that's so. For example, if you've been grinding and you've been locking in, you usually shut out how you feel. You know, I don't care how I feel. I'm just going to do this. Well, the more you don't care about how you feel, the more disconnected from yourself you become. The more lonely you become, because connection is the antidote to loneliness. So you either connect through how can you actually connect with yourself, like reconnect with yourself, do things you love, do things you enjoy, look after yourself. For example, people don't look after themselves. Or how can you put yourself out there and value connection just as much as you value success and growth? And that's connection brings the fulfillment. When you feel connected to your clients, you feel more fulfilled. When you feel connected to your team, you feel more fulfilled. When you feel connected to your audience and you're giving back, you feel more fulfilled. Connection brings a lot of fulfillment to people's lives, and it's why, you know, when you have a child, it brings a new level of fulfillment and purpose, because we are all craving connection deep down. Unconsciously, you feel like as you become more successful, you're going to achieve X, Y, and Z. But really, what you're craving is love, which is connection.
it's there's been times where I'm not trying to make this the me show, but I feel like this is quite a normal experience that you're in a room full of people or a group of friends or at the pub in the beer garden or and you feel more lonely than if you were by yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because
yeah.
loneliness isn't always being alone
No, oh my
physically.
God. Yeah.
It is
You've
not
got
having.
everything and you still feel empty. Yeah, and you could call it loneliness. You could also call it a lack of a feeling of emptiness, where it's maybe you have everything you thought you wanted, but it hasn't given you the feeling that you wanted. So I don't know. Let's just say that once financial freedom was your biggest desire, and you think that that will give you freedom, and therefore you're going to feel a sense of fulfillment. Well, when you've achieved that goal, you've hit it. Yes, it once brought you fulfillment, but now you have it, that's not going to bring you fulfillment anymore. So that's where people's values change. So it's like, okay, there's going to be another layer to this that's going to have to bring you fulfillment, because it's not going to be what got you here, for example. And that could be that. It can be where you are, you've got everything you want and you still feel empty. And it's like, okay, something in your life is missing that brings you fulfillment, and it's not what you thought it was because you've achieved that. And that's what we call like the post goal depression or whatever. And it's like
Mhm.
you achieve a
What now?
goal, and what now? Well, you you haven't got anything else. That's it. You've achieved it. You've done it. Now, who are you without that? Right. So then you have to look beyond what's your new meaning, what's your new purpose, and it usually is emptiness. Usually comes from a lack of purpose, meaning, fulfillment. It's that feeling that you want. It's not the thing that you want. It's what would fill this void for me. Would it be a relationship? Would it be connection? Would it be love? Would it be giving back or whatever?
Mm. And do you think there's a way to get to that part, that version of themselves, that success or whatever that means to each individual, that grind, that and that goal that they're chasing? Do you think there's a way of doing that while keeping the connection, the version of themselves that they currently are, and enhancing elements of that? Or do you think it's just a case of the people that are aware of this that are going, yeah, that makes sense, I feel that? Is that because they're just locked in and just sort of gone for it? And then you get to the extreme where you're like, oh shit, I've missed stuff here. And you're sort of backtracing.
But that's where it gives them an opportunity to grow.